How do they do it? Why do they do it? Riding and crashing and riding and winning and always faster and faster.
Welcome back everybody to With Antone MotoGP 2025, and we've just had the San Marino round 16 of the MotoGP Championship, and it just about gave us a little bit of everything. We had some high drama, we had some really close racing, and we started to see some of the Formula One stars crossing over. We had a disaster from KTM, and we also enjoyed some local hero glory. So let's take a little bit of a closer look, and I want to start off with that local hero. I want to talk about Marco Bezzecchi from the VR46 Academy. Well, the last 4 or 5 rounds of season 2025, Bezz has really started to show his speed and class on that Aprilia. He's getting faster and faster, and he's starting to really challenge, and in some occasions even win races and challenge Marc Marquez for his dominance. Now, I know that there's a big gap in the championship, but let's look at the weekend. He puts the Aprilia into pole position. He wins the sprint race. Okay, Marc Marquez crashed out of that sprint race, but you got to be there to do it. And then he finished second in the GP. Now, let's not underestimate what it's like to have Marc Marquez sitting behind you. I think Marc Marquez after the race said, 26, 27 laps is a lot to do without making a mistake. So he just sat in behind him. He got that mistake out of Bezz and he went past. And Marc was quoted on saying it was one of the hardest races of his season. So Bezz on the rise, the VR46 Academy proving a success. Speaking of Formula One stars on the grid, what about Liberty starting the changes? You saw Norris and Antonelli, the 2 stars from Mercedes and also from McLaren. And we saw a new local anthem protocol with the riders having to stand around. Now, Marc Marquez wasn't particularly happy about that. And then I know that Costa was complaining that normally he likes 10 minutes back on the bike before he mentally gets ready, and I think that was down to 6 or 7 minutes. But then, it's funny, they're talking about changing maybe even the structure of the pit setup, moving the Moto 2 and Moto 3 grids off-site and making the whole pit area and the main paddock dedicated entirely to MotoGP. And even a rumour that they might be reducing the number of flyaway races. But Liberty can do all they want. But the one person who's in charge of MotoGP, as we've discussed, who stole the show, Marc Marquez, comes out onto the podium doing his messy celebration. Leathers off. Anyway, he put his leathers back on, but he just showed exactly what can be doing. I want to talk about KTM. Failure for the weekend for KTM. It's so much so that Acosta gave the KTM the finger after it tossed its chain. For the 3rd time, 3 chains coming off. And, we've got to kind of ask ourselves why. Well, we know with San Marino, the bikes, they like to run the longer swing arm, put more weight on the front of the bike. And that's a big part of the reason that they were having that trouble. And, traditionally with the ride height devices and the corners, the chain needs to be fairly loose because we're talking about a full range of differences in height. It's almost like motocross style, and a lot of the bikes are now running actual chain guards to keep the chain on. So there's obviously a little bit of a problem there. It does pose some questions as to what is exactly happening with KTM. They're certainly fickle. You've got to maybe start to ask a little bit about their mechanical preparation, because this comes at a completely bad time. It stops the momentum. I mean, we have seen great momentum build up by KTM recently, and it actually pretty well put an end to what they were doing at San Marino. Speaking of mechanical preparation, I just want to highlight a little bit about, I actually saw Rivola from Aprilia running down the pit box because Jorge Martin, the current world champion, was out on the sighting lap, and the bike just broke down. It stopped, it wouldn't run, so he had to try to get back to the pits. And, famously, he didn't get back before the pits closed. So now we've got the rule. You remember in Kota, when Marc Marquez ran off the track, if you do anything in and out of the pits after that closure, you get a double long lap penalty. And that's exactly what he got. But really, what is happening there with Aprilia? And I think it's absolutely time for Martin to start getting a few things moving. We can't be coming back from a crash the whole time. And I think he needs to get that scintillating one-lap pace back, and then he'll be on his way again. Because the way that it's going at the moment, it's really not offering up what he needs to be doing for the current world champion. Speaking of current world champions, Mr. Go Free, Pecco Bagnaia, well, another disaster. He turned up at the track with his dog, but really even Delinea is starting to say that it's wearing thin. They can't do anything more for the bike. So really what's going to happen there? I don't know. On the Yamaha side, let's talk a little bit about Yamaha. Fantastic result from Quartararo on the Saturday in the sprint. We saw the V4 debuted, beautiful blue bike. Not the red bike of Ducati, but the blue bike of Yamaha. It's a thirsty bike. They had some fuel issues. They had a couple of small gremlins with the bike, like you'd expect. And there's also a rumor that the actual, they can't run the bike because of the aerodynamics and gearbox ratios. That doesn't seem to be 100% found in truth. I did read and I saw, listening to Matt Oxley's podcast, that apparently the fairings and everything will go and the ratios are fine. So anyway, they'll be testing that V4 again today with all the riders, and they will continue on. What about Honda? What happened with Honda? Well, Zarco and Mir crashing into each other, taking both bikes out. I mean, it was a similar tangle with Fernandez and Rins, but at least Fernandez got back to finish. But Zarco and Mir crashed. Marini continuing to add to his great season, put the Honda in 7th place. Now, in the test today, you'll see Honda continue on that chassis development. The frame development is making a really big difference to that bike. And I think KTM might be focusing on trying to get their chains to stay on. But anyway, Tuesday also very important. And we'll see the Pirelli tyres be tested by some of the test riders from most of the teams. So they'll be able to get some miles on that. Other news, Moto E is gone. We won't be seeing Moto E at the end of this series. It's finished. And it will not be exactly been running anymore. It is something to see the Moto E though. You can hear the tyres screeching on the road and the bikes are silent, but it just hasn't caught on, so it's gone. So anyway, the next round that we'll be talking about is the Japanese Grand Prix. It's on the 28th of September, and it's the first chance for Marc Marquez, number 93, to take the world title, which is very exciting. So today, what did we see? For the San Marino, we saw Marco Bezzecchi making every Italian very proud. And the question has to be asked, is Marco Bezzecchi the next big Italian star? Because Pecco's failed, and Bezzecchi, is he up for the challenge? And also, what about Liberty? We're starting to see they're really evolving the sport off the track. Is it good? Is it bad? Where is it going? I think we're going to see a little bit more of that as we go forward. But anyway, thanks for watching today. If you've enjoyed today, why not give it a thumbs up, or you can drop down below in the comments what you think. And I'd really love to get a subscription as well. All right, well, thanks for listening, and I'll speak to you again soon. Okay, bye for now.